I should have never gone near that lake. They warned me. Again and again, they told me to stay away from the lake after dark, but I didn't listen. I thought it was just a story, just another small-town legend meant to scare kids. But I was wrong. The lake isn't just water. It watches. It whispers. It remembers. The night I stepped too close, I heard them, the voices of the ones who never made it back. And now, they want me to join them. I ran. I begged. I fought. But the lake never lets go. And as I stand here, water rising around me, I finally understand. I was never meant to leave. I always knew my family was hiding something. Ever since I was a kid, there were rules in our house that never made sense. Never go into the basement. Never ask about Dad's job. And never, under any circumstances, swim in the lake behind our house. I followed those rules for years, until the night I broke one. It started with a sound. A faint drip, drip, drip echoing through the silent house. At first, I thought it was the kitchen faucet. But as I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, I realized something strange. The sound wasn't coming from inside the house. It was coming from outside. I pushed the blankets aside, heart pounding as I moved to the window. The moon cast a silvery glow over the lake, its surface unnaturally still. The trees around it stood like frozen statues, their branches swaying slightly in the cool breeze. And then, I saw it. A ripple. Small at first. Then another. And another. Something was moving beneath the water. I told myself it was just a fish, maybe a frog, or the wind playing tricks on my eyes. But deep down, I knew better. This wasn't normal. I glanced at my bedroom door. My parents' room was just down the hall, but I knew if I woke them up, they'd be furious. They never wanted me near the lake. They never explained why, but their fear was enough to keep me away. Until now. The pull was too strong. I slipped out of my room, stepping carefully to avoid the creaky floorboards. The house was eerily silent, the kind of silence that made my skin crawl. It felt like someone, or something, was holding its breath. When I reached the front door, I hesitated. The lake shimmered under the moonlight, calling me like it always did. I stepped outside. The night air was damp and thick, wrapping around me like a heavy blanket. The grass was wet beneath my feet, each step making a soft squishing sound. The closer I got, the more my chest tightened. The water looked black. Endless. I knelt at the shore, peering into the darkness. And then, I saw it. A hand. A pale, lifeless hand breaking the surface. I froze. My mind screamed at me to run, but my body wouldn't move. The fingers twitched, curling slightly, as if trying to grasp something, trying to pull itself up. My stomach twisted. My breath hitched. This wasn't real. It couldn't be real. And then, from beneath the water, a voice whispered my name. Not the wind. Not my imagination. Not a dream. Real. I stumbled backward, heart slamming against my ribs. I wanted to scream, but my throat tightened, trapping the sound inside. The lake was silent again. The hand was gone. But I knew what I had seen. And I knew, it wasn't over. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw it, that pale, lifeless hand reaching out from the lake, the whisper of my name still echoing in my ears. By morning, I had convinced myself that it was just a dream. A hallucination. Maybe I was sleep-deprived, or maybe my mind was playing tricks on me. But deep down, I knew. It was real. And the worst part? Someone else knew too. At breakfast, my mom barely looked at me. She poured my dad a cup of coffee, her hands shaking as she set it down in front of him. Dad was reading the newspaper, as always, but I could see the tension in his jaw. Something was off. "Did you sleep well?" my mom asked. Her voice was too casual. Too forced. I swallowed, choosing my words carefully. "Yeah, fine." She nodded but didn't say anything else. And then my dad spoke. "Did you hear anything last night?" he asked, flipping a page in the newspaper without looking up. My whole body stiffened. "No, why?" He didn't answer. Just kept reading. I felt suffocated. My parents were hiding something, and I needed to know what. After breakfast, I went outside. The lake looked different in the daylight, calm, innocent, harmless. Like it hadn't tried to swallow me whole just hours ago. But something in my gut told me that last night was just the beginning. I walked closer to the water, my breath catching as I noticed something in the mud near the shore. Footprints. And they weren't mine. The tracks led from the water, as if someone had crawled out of the lake and walked away. My blood ran cold. Before I could react, I heard a voice behind me. "You saw it, didn't you?" I whipped around, my heart pounding. It was Ethan. My best friend. The one person who would believe me. And the one person who looked just as scared as I felt. Ethan's words hung in the air, thick and heavy. "You saw it, didn't you?" I swallowed hard. How did he know? "What are you talking about?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Ethan didn't answer right away. His eyes flickered to the lake, then back to me. I saw your light turn on last night. And I heard something. A chill ran through me. What did you hear? Ethan hesitated, his jaw tightening. A voice. It was calling your name. My stomach twisted. So I hadn't imagined it. It was real. Ethan stepped closer. Look, I never told you this, but my brother used to talk about the lake before he stopped. I knew what he was going to say. Before his brother disappeared. Ethan's older brother, Liam, had gone missing 3 years ago. Vanished without a trace. The police searched the woods, the lake, the entire town. But they never found anything. Not a body. Not a clue. Nothing. And now, standing by the water, I couldn't ignore the sinking feeling in my gut. What did Liam say about the lake? I asked. Ethan exhaled sharply. He used to wake up in the middle of the night, screaming about someone pulling him under. He said he saw hands in the water. A face staring at him. My heart pounded. Did anyone believe him? Ethan let out a hollow laugh. No. Everyone thought he was just paranoid. Or sleepwalking. My parents took him to therapy. But he kept saying the same thing. I waited. What did he say? Ethan's eyes darkened. The lake wants something. And one day, it's going to take it. Goosebumps crawled up my arms. We stood in silence, staring at the still water. It looked normal. Peaceful, even. But I knew better now. The lake was watching us. Waiting. And then, something broke the surface. A ripple. A disturbance in the water. I grabbed Ethan's arm. Did you see that? He nodded slowly. Yeah. I saw it. The ripple grew bigger. Expanding outward. And then, for the briefest second, I saw it. A hand. Pale. Thin. Reaching out. I stumbled backward, my breath caught in my throat. But when I blinked, it was gone. Like it had never been there. Ethan grabbed my wrist. We need to go. Now. But as we turned to leave, I heard it again. That whisper. Come back. And this time, it wasn't just calling my name. It was calling both of us. Ethan and I ran. The trees blurred past us as we sprinted away from the lake, our breaths ragged, our footsteps pounding against the forest floor. Neither of us spoke, but we didn't have to. We both heard it. That voice. Calling us. Pulling us back. We didn't stop until we reached my cabin. Ethan slammed the door shut behind us, locking it. For a moment, we just stood there, catching our breath, listening for any sign that we had been followed. Silence. But it wasn't comforting. It was the kind of silence that felt wrong, like something was holding its breath, waiting. I turned to Ethan. You saw it, didn't you? His face was pale. The hand, yeah. I saw it. I swallowed hard. Do you still think your brother was imagining things? Ethan didn't answer. He didn't need to. We both knew the truth now. Liam had been telling the truth. The lake really was cursed. I paced the small living room, my mind racing. What do we do? Call the police? Ethan let out a hollow laugh. And tell them what? That we saw a ghost hand in the water? They'll think we're crazy. He was right. No one would believe us. I sat down on the couch, rubbing my temples. There has to be a way to stop this. Ethan hesitated. Maybe there is. I looked up. What do you mean? He pulled out his phone and scrolled through something. Then he turned the screen toward me. It was an old newspaper article, from 1952. The headline made my stomach drop. Mysterious drownings continue at Black Hollow Lake, is there a curse? I grabbed the phone and read the article. Over the past century, multiple people had drowned in the lake. All under the same conditions. No signs of struggle. No witnesses. Their bodies found floating, their faces frozen in terror. And then, a name caught my eye. Margaret Holloway. A girl who had drowned in the lake 70 years ago. She was the first recorded victim. Ethan leaned in. I think she's the one in the water. The one calling us. I shivered. But why us? Ethan exhaled. I don't know. But I think we need to find out. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard it. Come back. I tossed and turned, but the whisper wouldn't stop. And then, at exactly 3 a.m., my bedroom window creaked open. I shot up in bed, heart hammering. The window was wide open, the curtains fluttering in the breeze. But that wasn't the worst part. Footprints. Wet footprints. Leading from the window to my bed. I froze. Something had been here. I grabbed my phone and called Ethan. He picked up on the first ring. I was just about to call you. His voice was shaking. Something's outside my cabin. And it's knocking on the door. Ethan's words sent a chill through my spine. Something's outside my cabin. And it's knocking on the door. I jumped out of bed, my pulse hammering in my ears. Don't open it, I whispered into the phone. Ethan's breathing was shaky. No chance in hell. Then, I heard it too. A faint tapping. Not from Ethan's side. From my window. I turned slowly. The window I had locked was now open again. And outside, half hidden in the darkness, was a figure standing in the trees. I couldn't see its face. But I could see its eyes. Wide. Hollow. Watching me. Ethan, I whispered. It's here too. A long pause. Then, in a voice barely above a breath, he said, we need to get out of here. Now. I grabbed my car keys and ran outside, barely checking my surroundings. The cold night air hit me like a slap, but I didn't care. I just needed to get to Ethan. His cabin was a few minutes away, but it felt like forever. My headlights cut through the thick fog rolling in from the lake, distorting everything around me. Then, my car stalled. I cursed, slamming my hands against the wheel. The lights flickered. Then, the radio turned on. A soft static buzzed through the speakers. And beneath it, a whisper. Come back, to me. My blood turned ice cold. Then, the car started moving. Not forward. Backward. Toward the lake. I jammed my foot on the brake. Nothing. The car kept rolling, picking up speed. The trees blurred past me. My fingers fumbled with the door handle. Locked. Then I saw it. The water. The car was heading straight for it. My breathing turned ragged. I yanked the wheel, but it wouldn't budge. And then, a scream. It came from inside the car. Right behind me. I didn't dare look in the rearview mirror. I knew I wasn't alone. At the last second, I threw the car into neutral and slammed the emergency brake. The car jerked to a stop, mere inches from the water's edge. Everything went silent. I sat there, gripping the steering wheel, my chest heaving. Then, a hand pressed against my window. Pale. Waterlogged. Fingers curling, scratching. I screamed and threw the door open, tumbling out onto the wet ground. My body shook as I scrambled away, my eyes locked onto the lake. The hand sank back into the water. Like it had never been there. I didn't even remember running to Ethan's cabin. One moment I was by the lake, the next I was pounding on his door, desperate to get inside. Ethan yanked it open, his face pale. What the hell happened? I couldn't speak. I just shoved past him and locked the door. For a long time, we just sat there in silence, catching our breath. Then Ethan finally said, she's getting stronger, isn't she? I nodded. Margaret Holloway wasn't just some ghost story. She was real. And she wasn't done with us yet. Ethan and I sat in silence, the weight of the night pressing down on us. The cabin's dim light flickered slightly, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Finally, I found my voice. Ethan, we need to leave. Now. He rubbed his face, exhaustion and fear evident in his eyes. You think we can just walk away from this? I swallowed hard. We have to try. Ethan shook his head. You don't get it. It's not just about us anymore. It's about her. Margaret. A gust of wind rattled the windows, as if something, or someone, was listening. I shuddered. Then we need to find out what she wants. Ethan's eyes darkened. That's the thing. I think I already know. He grabbed a dusty notebook from the shelf and flipped it open. Inside were old newspaper clippings, handwritten notes, and faded photographs. This is all I could find about her, he muttered. Margaret Holloway. She lived here almost 100 years ago. She was different. People in town feared her. Said she could control the lake, summon things from beneath it. I frowned. You're saying she was a witch? Ethan hesitated. Or something worse. He pulled out an old newspaper article, the yellowed paper crumbling slightly at the edges. The headline sent a chill through me. Local woman drowns in mysterious circumstances, body never recovered. The date was from 1924. I scanned the article. Wait, it says the townspeople accused her of drowning children in the lake. That she was cursed. Ethan nodded grimly. They blamed her for everything. Bad crops. Vanishing animals. Even disappearances. And then, one night, they came for her. My fingers trembled as I turned the page. A grainy black and white photo showed a group of people standing at the lake's edge. They were holding something. No. Someone. Margaret. The caption beneath it read, "The last sighting of Margaret Holloway before she vanished beneath the water." A sick feeling crawled up my spine. They drowned her. Ethan exhaled slowly. And she never left. A sudden bang made us both jump. The front door shook violently, as if someone was pounding against it. I scrambled to my feet. Ethan. His expression was grim. She knows we're talking about her. I reached for my phone, my hands shaking. The screen flickered. The battery was draining. Then, the cabin went dark. Total silence. Then, a whisper. Come to me. The voice was inside the cabin. My breath caught. The air turned icy. I turned to Ethan. He was gone. Ethan? My voice barely came out. Silence. I took a shaky step forward, my heart pounding. The room felt different. The walls stretched, the air thick with something unseen. Then, I saw it. The door to the back room was open. But I knew for a fact. We never opened it. I hesitated before stepping inside. The room smelled of damp earth and stagnant water. The floorboards groaned beneath me. Then, I saw her. Standing in the far corner. Margaret. Her long, dripping hair covered her face. Her skin was pale, almost translucent, her dress hanging in tattered pieces. She didn't move. She just watched me. And in that moment, I realized something far worse than her presence. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking behind me. A cold breath touched my neck. I turned. And everything went black. Darkness swallowed me whole. For a moment, there was nothing, no sound, no air, no ground beneath me. Just a weightless void, as if I had fallen into an abyss with no end. Then, a whisper. You shouldn't have come here. The voice was cold, distant, yet right beside my ear. I gasped as my body lurched forward, hitting solid ground. My vision blurred, my head spinning. I was somewhere else now. Somewhere wet. The scent of stagnant water filled my nose. My fingers touched damp grass, and as my eyes adjusted, I realized I was on the shore of the lake. But not as it was. The water was black, churning unnaturally under a sky with no stars. A thick mist hovered over the surface, twisting into eerie shapes. I turned, my breath hitching. Ethan was there. He stood near the water's edge, his face pale, eyes wide in horror. His lips moved, but no sound came out. And then, I saw her. Margaret. She rose from the water like a shadow given form. Her dress clung to her skeletal frame, her long, wet hair hiding most of her face. But her eyes, glowing and empty, bore into mine. You are just like them, she whispered. A violent gust of wind ripped through the air, and suddenly, I could see it all. A memory. The townspeople dragging her to the lake, their faces twisted with hatred. The ropes around her wrists, the weight tied to her ankles. The way she had screamed. I am not the one who took them. Please, you have to listen. But they hadn't listened. They had thrown her into the water. And as she sank, she had sworn vengeance. The vision faded. I stumbled back, my chest heaving. Margaret stared at me. You wanted the truth, she whispered. Now, you know. Ethan finally found his voice. You were innocent. His voice cracked. They killed you for something you didn't do. Margaret's head tilted slightly. And now, I take what they stole from me. Her hands rose, and the water rushed forward. The lake came alive. Waves surged unnaturally, grabbing at my ankles, pulling me toward the water. Ethan shouted my name, but his voice was drowned by the howling wind. I struggled, but the force was too strong. I was being dragged under. No! I screamed, thrashing wildly. Then, a flash of light. Ethan had grabbed the flashlight from his pocket and aimed it directly at Margaret. The beam hit her face, and for the first time, she recoiled. She screamed. Her form flickered, like a glitch in reality. The water paused, retreating slightly. She's weak to light. I gasped. Ethan turned to me, his expression determined. Then let's end this. He pulled out his phone, turning on the brightest flashlight setting. I did the same. Together, we aimed both beams at Margaret. She shrieked again, her form cracking like shattered glass. The lake frothed violently, as if fighting against her. No, she wailed, her voice no longer menacing, but desperate. And suddenly, I understood. She didn't want to kill us. She wanted to be free. The lake was her prison. The curse had bound her here, keeping her in pain and rage for a century. I lowered my phone slightly. Margaret, I called. You don't have to do this. It's over. They're gone. She turned toward me, her glowing eyes flickering. I took a step closer. Let go. You don't have to haunt this place anymore. For a long moment, she didn't move. Then, her shoulders sagged. The wind stilled. The water calmed. And Margaret, the woman once feared, whispered. Thank you. Her form dissolved into mist. The lake shimmered, as if releasing a long-held breath. And then, she was gone. The next morning, Ethan and I stood at the lake's edge, the water now clear and still. For the first time in years, the air felt light. The curse had lifted. Ethan exhaled. It's over. I nodded, watching the gentle ripples dance on the surface. Yeah. But deep down, I wondered. Had Margaret truly found peace? Or was she simply waiting? Beneath the surface?